Okay, here we go. So when I first ranked all the V17s, there was always a part of me that knew that I'd eventually have to do the 16s too, but what I definitely did not realize was just how much of a monumental task this shit was actually going to be. Like 13 boulders is one thing, this was a whole other freaking monster. Anyways, yeah, I tried my hardest to stick to certain criteria, but I can't lie, this was almost entirely based on vibes. I mean, serious, it's 71 freaking boulders. There's some stuff that's obviously better, stuff that's obviously choss, but ranking everything in the middle as objectively as possible was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do for this channel. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that this is all 100% a joke, completely subjective opinion, not meant to be taken seriously in any way whatsoever, etc, etc, etc. But yeah, a bit of a departure from the usual climbing news show, so let me know if you're into it, and I'll do more stuff like this. But otherwise, I guess sit back, relax, and enjoy the fact that I basically just wasted like an entire month of my life in total ranking every single V16 in the world so far for like no reason. Also, like and subscribe, all that, you know the drill, it helps me out. Oh good god, why did I do this to myself? Number 71, bookkeeping. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that bookkeeping being here is actually kind of a surprise to a lot of you. It's not an ugly limestone traverse like I'm guessing you were expecting, and I'm honestly assuming that most of you completely forgot this thing even existed. And yeah, I mean, in terms of aesthetics, this thing is actually surprisingly cool. It's a sick granite cave that's sustained, it flows well, it's got dope single moves, and the structure itself is one of those rare cliff band situations that look like they were carved by ancient rivers. But see, yeah, that's where all the praise for this thing stops. There is so much wrong with bookkeeping. I literally don't even know where to begin. It's the mother of all link-ups, effectively slapping together the beginning of something like 10 different sport climbs. It's done as a boulder for no reason at all, because let's be real, there's nothing stopping this already super long climb from being done with a harness and a rope. And to make matters so much worse than they honestly have any right to be, this is easily the only problem in the world that ends on a freaking dab. Yeah. By definition, in order to send this boulder, you can't. In fact, the second you do, the giant dab you just pulled off immediately invalidates your red point go. And to make things worse, dabbing at the end is even freaking hard to pull off. I mean, look at Colin Duffy, he's actually actively putting in the work to effectively nullify everything he just previously did. Bookkeeping is somehow both everything that bouldering should be and everything it shouldn't. It's the kind of stupid crap you and your buddies come up with at the end of a session when no one's managed to send anything and all that's left is to goof off and act like idiots in the woods. Except in this case, one of you was too much of a nerd, took it way too seriously, and to make matters worse, decided to name the freaking thing bookkeeping. Hey, I mean, I'm honestly not kidding when I say a small part of me actually kind of wanted to put this thing in the #1 spot for that exact reason. Number 70, the Wild South. So I think all of my feelings towards Raven Tor, you know, the cliff this and Realm of Torment are on, were made pretty clear by my last ranking video, and the Wild South really doesn't do much to make things better. If anything, this might actually make things worse. Yes, this is the rock equivalent of the saying, a face only a mother could love, a crag that only a local would ever devote any time to, because there is just literally nothing else around. Will Bozy is psyched for reasons he should probably see a therapist about. Most people say it's better than nothing, and Emil Abramson's face when he first laid eyes on this place seemed to imply that he completely disagrees with anyone wasting their time climbing here at all. Apparently it even smells bad.
It smells a bit like feces. I wish I could get that across on video.
So yes, the Wild South is, like Realm of Torment, absolute choss. But it's so much worse for one single fact. This thing is not an independent boulder problem. It's the bottom third of a goddamn sport climb. I shit you not. Wild Wild West. It's 8C plus 514C. Why? Why are we not just strapping on a harness and doing the whole thing, taking 9B, 15B or something and calling it a day? Look, if you're gonna boulder half a sport climb, at least have the decency to choose a finish hold that makes some amount of sense, right? And yet the Wild South it can't even give us that. To be fair to Will Bozy, he was just adding a low start to an already established climb that makes zero sense, so none of this is really on him. But the fact that this thing ends on a random ass crimp for no reason, a crimp that's so high off the deck you're forced to reverse moves that are easy enough to be down climbable, that alone makes this monstrosity of a thing so much worse than it ever had any right to be. Like, it's one thing to get victory moves to a satisfying top out, but this is like redundant bullshit on an already redundant climb. It's redundant squared. It's like taking two halves of a cake, putting frosting between them, smashing them together, and calling it a burger. What the fuck are we even doing here? Number 69, Terra Nova. Yeah, I know. The moves are cool and it's historic. Listen, this is my list, and if it pisses you off that Terra Nova's as low on it as it is, good. It's a trash no-start traverse. It will always be a trash no-start traverse, and the fact that it's the second 8C plus V16 to ever be climbed is an embarrassment to the sport. I genuinely cannot believe that there are people out there that actively want this thing to be the first ever 9A instead of Burden of Freaking Dreams. That alone is so insulting to the very idea of bouldering, it should make Adamandra want to hang up his solutions in shame for what he's accidentally created. Dude, Terra Nova was never even meant to be anything more than a stupid backyard training boulder. Even Adam himself thinks it sucks and never expected anyone to try it. He barely even thinks of it as an achievement. Calm down. Look, I hate Terra Nova. It makes me irrationally angry, as you can probably tell, and I would have ranked it lower if I could have. Fuck you. Alright, I really need to chill. Also, fine, I guess the Rose move is kind of cool, but that's the only good thing I'm going to say about it. Number 68, Letoboric. Okay, so let's be real. This thing is, like, objectively a worse climb than Terra Nova. It's got a no-hands rest knee bar in a semi-interesting position, but that's about it. Literally, the only reason I'm ranking it one spot higher is because it's less famous and thus far less likely to ever have to occupy more time in my mind than however long it takes me to write and edit this video. But yeah, I mean, we're talking about another limestone drop-down traverse, dude. This thing is, it's not great. Number 67, Brutal Rider. And so, with this boulder, I officially crown Adamandra the undisputed lord of bouldering choss. Dude's got 3 8C plus V16 first ascents, and every single one is some sort of drop-off traverse situation. But okay, there are a few things that can be said about Brutal Rider that can't be said about Terra Nova or Letoboric that at least give it some semblance of quality. This boulder at least climbs out of a pretty neat-looking cave and even ends on a fairly obvious jug, and wait, is that a freaking bolt right there? Yeah, fuck this. Honestly, that's all the praise I can realistically give it. Long-ass cave climb that requires a giant rest in the middle with zero top out? Cool-ish, but a 5-star boulder that does not make, and honestly, this is nothing more than an upside-down Letoboric. Seriously, they're like basically the same freaking thing, down to the no-hands rest. Number 66, the Trident. Yeah, the Trident just makes me genuinely sad. I mean, look at where this freaking boulder is, man. It's like this incredibly cool, almost black seaside rock. It's beautiful, it's scenic, it's unlike probably anything you will ever really see anywhere else on the planet, and yet the boulder itself is kind of a piece of shit. The Trident is the exact same thing as Poseidon's Wrath. It just eliminates a single freaking hole in the middle for no reason other than one guy decided that that's what he wanted. And you know, it's cool that Solly Kemble Dory put a bunch of time and effort into this thing, but by the general rules of bouldering, this isn't a new boulder, it's just climbing Poseidon's Wrath with horrifically bad beta. On purpose. For like, no reason. It gets some points for having cool movement and being pretty, but otherwise it's pretty freaking stupid. Number 65, Muerte por Asfixia. It really does pain me to have to put a boulder that is literally at my home crag this far down the list, but I do have to be as objective as I possibly can, and while Muerte por Asfixia has some really cool moves on a pretty sweet looking roof, the fact of the matter is that this particular problem we're looking at is one, made up of incredibly freaking chossy, thick-grained granite that's entirely too sharp, and two, one of the dabbiest dabbity-dabbing boulders you'll ever see. This thing is so close to freaking spelunking, I'm surprised Magnus Mippo hasn't made an hour-long video about how incredibly dangerous trying it is. Seriously, you know what muerte por asfixia means in Spanish? Death by suffocation. Or, I guess, choking? Either way, the point stands. I mean, look at this shit. You get someone with a slightly longer ape index on this thing, and it's impossible. Jorge Diaz-Rullo is 5'6". Pablo Zamora is even shorter. They barely fit. I wish I could go higher, no pun intended, but I literally just can't. Number 64, Brace for the Cure. The Green 45 is a legendary wall, and is there a more classic 8B plus out there than Jade? Yes, I can think of like 4 off the dome, but the point is that Jade is up there, one of the best boulders in the world, and seeing Matt Foltz defile it with this literal roundabout pointless 2-move thing is something straight out of a freaking Mary Shelley novel. Brace for the Cure is the equivalent of getting up off the couch for the 4th time to look at a fridge full of condiments. There's no point, all the wishful thinking in the world won't make something good come out of it, and by then you probably already ate the good stuff anyway, so why even bother? Number 63, Return of the Dreamtime. When the defining feature of a boulder is a little hop over a bulge that threatens to effectively wipe out your nipples and take out your chin if you miss the hold you're going for, we might just have a little bit of a problem. It's a move that's just as awkward as this boulder's name. Listen, there is nothing about Return of the Dreamtime that gives Return of the Sleepwalker. It doesn't climb into the classic line like the real Return climbs into Sleepwalker. Instead, it climbs out of Dreamtime completely. It jumps off of slopers instead of to them. It has no Gastons, no bicep moves. It's a completely different grade, and on top of everything else, it traverses right instead of left. Do I really need to say more? I honestly, I don't think so. Points, I guess, for being on the Dreamtime boulder, which is slowly becoming the world's most famous spray wall, but at the same time, I'm taking points away for contributing to the Dreamtime boulder becoming the world's most famous spray wall. Seriously, dude, like what's next? Climbing up REM, reversing Return of the Dreamtime, and finishing up Dreamtime Stand to make the world's second V18? Oh god. Oh, dude, please no. Just, just don't. Okay? Just don't. I swear to God, if one of you bastards even tries this, I will personally hunt you down and force an entire chalk bucket's worth of mag dust down your throat. And that shit's ridiculously expensive, so you know I'm being serious. Number 62, Hallucination. I mean, honestly, could you really expect a heinous double mono traverse on ugly-ass volcanic tuff to go anywhere else on this list? I'm sorry, I don't mean to sound snarky, but just look at this freaking thing. Is it overhung? Yes. Is it incredibly difficult? Yes. Does it have interesting movement? I suppose. Is it also on one of the ugliest rock types to ever ugly? Absolutely. Plus, this thing's only as hard as it is because the original 8B Plus version broke, so, you know, sometimes Choss really just does look like Choss. I really wish there was more to say about this thing, but as it stands, look, had this been in the UK, the overwhelming probability is we'd have an overtly psyched Will Bosey telling us entirely too much about it while live streaming, and that's, well, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. That's not usually a good sign that the boulder in question has anything remotely close to what your average person might define as quality. No offense to Will Bosey, he's been catching strays this whole video. I really do love the guy, and I love how psyched he is about climbing and his absolute devotion to pushing the sport's physical limits. I just, like, you know, I had to throw that out there and remind people that I'm really just joking around here. Number 61, Moonlight Sonata. Dude, Moonlight Sonata had everything going for it. Ultra physical sandstone hugging practice, an insane looking campus bump move that looks incredibly fun, just about as tall as your average gym wall with an interesting enough top out that adds that extra spice of life. And then you realize that Taylor McNeil has to seriously reach hard to span between the holds, and that Taylor McNeil is 6'2", 190 centimeters tall with a positive ape index, and it clicks that the only two people tall enough to do this thing, him and Matt Foltz, have already done it. Yeah, so I guess that explains why this thing's not higher up on this list. Honestly, I should have put it at the very fucking bottom. Finding out how morpho this thing actually is might genuinely be more disappointing to me than seeing Chris fucking Sharma shilling for crypto. Number 60, Spray and Pray. You know, it's really hard to properly rank boulders that only have pictures of them, and yet I'm confident that this thing deserves to be at the very bottom of this list. Don't get me wrong, I think the Spray of Light Cave in Rocklands is actually really freaking sick, but at the same time, the fact that there are also just so many possible climbs that can come out of it in like a billion different ways just completely ruins the purity of what would otherwise be a bunch of beautiful individual boulders. Spray and Pray theoretically being the hardest of the bunch, while at the same time linking 3 different problems together just ruins the entire cave for me, and that's honestly just a massive freaking bummer. This boulder is everything that I desperately hope the Dreamtime boulder will not become, everything I know it eventually will, and to make matters worse, the name comes from the fact that you literally have to snipe a toe hook in order to do this thing, and I genuinely cannot think of a more frustrating crux move than that. Number 59, Daños Colaterales. It pains me to have to put this one this low because, well, you know, Spain. But at least now you know how committed I am to being as unbiased as humanly. Okay, I can't seriously finish that sentence. This is literally the most biased list on the planet, and my criteria is basically non-existent. Yes, most of this list is as accurate as the average V5 in an LA gym, but at least with this one, I'm pretty confident that I've hit the nail on the head. Ugly rock, cool stuff with like crimps and compression on a really serious overhang, but otherwise just really nothing to write home about. Number 58, Obsidian. So a short lowball traverse on some really interesting geometric looking basalt that genuinely makes me wonder if Stephen Hochbaum, the guy that FA'd this, is completely freaking blind. Seriously, like the one defining feature of Obsidian is how black it is, and instead I'm just seeing photos of an incredibly green boulder. I guess Jade was taken, or maybe someone else named it and Stevie just kinda went with it? I don't know, I'm being an asshole. The point is that Obsidian looks super hard because of how weird the feet on this thing seem to be, which is cool, but this boulder still does suffer from being what it is, which again is just a pretty short lowball traverse, so yeah. Number 57, Big Conviction. Listen, it's cool that we're adding yet another line to the Big Island, but when the line itself is mostly just a shimmy, shimmy, shimmy heel hook situation, I really can't help but wonder why anyone would ever even bother. And that's the problem. I genuinely don't think that Big Conviction is ever going to receive any attention from anyone. The people who can send it are going to be focused on trying Sudan Soul because, let's be real, that's one sexy bastard of a rock, and the people who can't probably don't even know it exists. Otherwise, I mean, yeah, this is the line I originally thought people were referring to when they said the Big Island had a low start back when Sudan Soul hadn't even been sent yet, so I guess it's kinda cool, even though it's also a link of two problems? I don't know, at least Simon Lorenzi sent Big Conviction without having to stick a fucking book inside a knee pad, something I have not and will not ever forgive him for. Number 56, Ganesh. Oh hey look, there's a giant beautiful arete that this thing just straight up ignores for no reason. Contrived, you say? Yeah, probably. There is only one reason why you should ever take a detour instead of just going the way, and that's if the detour offers you something beautiful and fun. This is not the case here. This is the equivalent of going out of your way to check out the world's biggest ball of twine. Yeah, you might have fun on the journey if you're really super duper into twine, but are the hundreds of extra hours really all that worth it when you end up in the exact same spot anyways, and the way is actually way more beautiful? Probably not. Ganesh has got a cool cut loose situation, and I suppose some other interesting-ish stuff about it, but it's not enough to make it stand out. Especially not with that arete next to it. Number 55, Honey Badger. Yeah, I honestly think that the only reason people put this thing on a pedestal is because of how legendarily difficult it's supposed to be. But when you really look at it, I mean, other than some pretty cool movement and the fact that it at least tops out, which is a spectacularly low bar to have, Honey Badger is honestly a pretty rough boulder. Just another link up of two ugly, chossy limestone lines that literally broke on Wilbozy's Sengo, and when you put it like that, I mean, it's kind of hard to put it anywhere higher up than this. Honestly, there's not much else to say that I haven't already said about limestone boulders, link-ups, and limestone link-ups, so yeah, that's one hard-ass boulder you got there. You know, congrats, I guess. Number 54, No Capote Only. I gotta be honest, I really wasn't super sure if I was gonna include No Capote Only on this list, and I guess I gotta explain why. Barefoot Charles proposed this thing as the world's second ever 9A V17 a few years after Burden, and it very quickly got downgraded by Nico Pelorson to 8C V15. The only other repeat is from Ryohei Kameyama, who proposed 8C+, and so, well, averages, and now this boulder's on this list. Look, No Capote Only is not exactly pretty. Even without all the graffiti, it's a genuinely ugly bit of sandstone that only really looks cool because Charles has more style in one of his weird-ass, funky-looking big toes than most climbers have in their entire bodies. The best part about it is probably the condom pun that the name revolves around, which is both a thing written on the rock itself somewhere and a nod to Charles' whole barefoot-only climbing policy. Oh, and I guess there's also the somewhat historical significance of this thing being the boulder that put Charles on the map for like 80-ish% of the climbing population. Number 53, Superpowers. I'm going to preface this by saying that Aiden Roberts is the shit and also makes for an absolutely beautiful ladybug whenever he needs to. But if we're talking actual superpowers, this is like the boulder equivalent of being able to always identify where the nearest stalk of corn is. So yeah, I mean, not a terrible superpower, could potentially save your life in a pickle, but nothing anyone would probably go out of their way to actively want. Because this boulder is, I mean, it's simple. It's nasty, icky crimps on ugly rock with a bad landing. It's in a pretty spot, I suppose, but otherwise nothing to really write home about. Also, there's a rumor out there that it potentially broke and might no longer be climbable, and that really doesn't help. Number 52, La Révolutionnaire. You know, I really didn't want to put this one so low. Seriously, it's an incredible boulder. It gets points for being in font. It climbs beautifully, but Yeah, when the hardest part about sending a boulder is just not dabbing here, here, there, here, and every freaking whichwhere, you really can't expect to find this thing anywhere else but near the bottom of this ranking, even if it is a super cool cave with truly amazing movement. It pains me to put this thing here because I genuinely think that it's otherwise underrated and should not be forgotten, even though it's basically Muerte por Asfixia with just a tiny bit of extra space. Number 51, Bloody Sunday Sit. Pack your bags, workers at Merriam-Webster. We have finally managed to find the definitive example of the word meh. I have nothing to say about this boulder other than the fact that it's quite literally the unseasoned boiled chicken of boulder problems. Seriously, a great Toyota Corolla would probably get more heads to turn than bloody freaking Sunday sit-down start. Number 50, regret. There are a lot of really stupid dad jokes I could have made with the name of this boulder, so rather than saying any of them, I'm just gonna keep this to what little information I actually have. It's only been sent by one person, Toru Nakajima. He believes it's harder than lucid dreaming, and I believe him. It's 3 moves long, and this is the only goddamn picture we have of this thing. Could this go somewhere else on this list? Potentially. Am I gonna bother to look around to see if it should? I can't lie here. No, I'm not. Whether I'll live to regret that is a whole other story. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Number 49, Distortion. Dude, it seriously took me something like 45 minutes to finally freaking untangle the absolute hot mess of a spray wall that is the Wolvo Cave, or I guess technically the Evil Backwards Boulder. How the hell should I know? I've never even been there. Man, I don't even know at this point, and that should probably tell you everything you need in order to figure out that you could probably get the same level of uncontrived climbing out of a goddamn 60-degree kilter board. Look, this cave is famous and the problems themselves climb great, like Distortion's mantle is actually insane, but if it weren't for the fact that these problems are as popular as they are, they'd be at the very bottom of this list right alongside Spray and Pray. Also, this boulder's in Lincoln Lake, and any area where the approach starts with a downhill can absolutely go fuck itself. Number 48, Insomniac. This and Distortion are, I think, probably the first, at least somewhat controversial choices on this list, and as much as I'd like to put one of the world's most repeated V16 8C pluses in a higher spot, I just can't justify it given all the other criteria I've been listing. If Spray and Pray is as low as it is based on the fact that it's a link up, unfortunately Insomniac's just gotta receive the exact same treatment. I think the Wolvo Cave is actually kinda cool. It's bulletproof looking granite, and Insomniac has awesome moves, but like I said, it's a link up, which by definition makes it impure. Add the fact that it's basically a low ball traverse with horrible dab potential, and that it has the option to top out at any point once you get to the lip, but just straight up doesn't, and we have a pretty significant loss of quality. Honestly, the only reason I'm putting this one above Distortion is because it's so much more famous and has actually been repeated a bunch of times. Number 47, Howl at the Moon Sit. I had way more trouble placing this one than I ever really thought I would because, well, it's a beautiful rock and it's got an amazing precision throw to a slot that's just straight up awesome. And yet, I think it's hard to overstate the importance of purity when it comes to the overall quality of boulder problems, and this thing linking into Ice Knife just forces my hand in a way I wasn't really prepared for. Unfortunate, but it is what it is, especially given how obscure this thing is. No offense to Griffin Whiteside, who loves his obscurity. We're talking about a boulder that starts at Ice Knife, keeps traversing left just because, and eventually winds up in the exact same spot as Ice Knife. It's Ice Knife indirect, and just, no, stop it. Number 46, Vecchio Leone Sit. For some reason that I don't think I will ever understand, Aidan Roberts took one look at Vecchio Leone, one of the best and most famous 8B V13 boulders on the planet, and thought, you know what this absolutely gorgeous piece of rock really needs? One of those moves where you feel like your hip bone's about to break through your lungs. This is the sort of thing that happens when you let Aiden get bored. Dude shut up, flashed literally everything on that wall, including Vecchio itself, and instead of sitting around and chilling, or maybe even watching his buddies struggle as is his God-given right as one of the greatest climbers in the world, decided to start fucking around and coming up with stupid shit. And you know what? This is all 100% Sam Pryor's fault. Okay, not really. To be fair to Aiden, this was both a pretty infamous project for years, and he was also actively working on it with Sean Rabatou and I guess a few other people. And I suppose, to be fair to Sam, I don't think that he was even in the same country at the time. Either way, someone really needs to find a better way to keep Aiden on a leash and entertained, because the insane gap in quality between the sit and the vastly superior stand of Vecchio just really makes me think that accepting this boulder as, I guess, canon, if you want to call it that, was a gigantic mistake. Number 45, Nayuta. The prettiest link up on this list, and yet another completely horizontal roof traverse. This thing gets points for the awesome cut loose and the fact that it's under a bridge down by a river, but that's honestly about it. Add the fact that it was unfortunately attacked by someone who decided not just to chip, but basically destroy a bunch of its holds, and well, that's that. Really wish I could put it higher because some random ass person being an absolute dickbag is not Nayuta's fault, but I unfortunately just cannot, given that this thing basically just traverses through a bunch of other boulders. Thankfully, this stuff's still climbable though, so. Number 44, Tanpopo. Absolutely delightfully sounding name aside, which by the way means dandelion in Japanese. If you've never climbed outdoors, well, the only way I can properly explain the rarity of a cave like this is by saying the following. You ever see a unicorn pee on a platypus? Yeah, me being weird aside, the image I just forced in your head is just as unique as this rock formation in Shiobara, Japan, so I'm sorry, but mostly you're welcome. But yeah, as wildly amazing as this cave is, and as awesome as the moves are, Tanpopo is just not an independent line. It links like 4 different problems together, and that's just a massive bummer. Call me crazy though, but the uniqueness of the rock alone somehow managed to bump this up like 20 spots. Number 43, Hypothèse 6. Yeah, I feel like some people might actually get upset about this one. Look, it's fun. It's not everyone's cup of tea, and I'm aware that a single sit-start move bumping a boulder up by 6 grades from 7C plus V10 all the way to 8C plus V16 sounds horrific. And trust me, it probably is. Look, I know you guys are probably out for blood for stuff like this, but the truth of the matter is that boulders exactly like these have been climbed since the freaking 20s and are like the building blocks of our sport. Literally. This thing being as hard as it is kinda stupid, yes, but it deserves to be recognized for what it is, given that the stand was FA'd by Jackie Godot way back in 1985. Hypothèse 6 is a truly historic climb and the definition of a one-move wonder, as well as even more evidence that the so-called criteria I keep talking about in this video is just a whole bunch of bullshit, and I'm basically just ranking all these for reasons that not even I properly understand. Number 42, Euclase. Of course this thing would be named after a goddamn crystal. I gotta be honest here, there are a lot of things that I'd love to be able to say about where I think Dave Graham or whoever is in charge of his social media should shove those particular crystals for somehow not getting a freaking video of this thing, or at the very least not posting one. But considering this isn't the worst instance of Dave Graham not posting send footage he absolutely already should have, I guess I could be just a little more lenient. Or not. Where's the hypnotized minds footy? Dave, why haven't you posted it? Dave, where'd you hide it? Dave! Okay, apparently this thing's got intricate movement, some cool knee bar stuff, and has a nasty highball finish. This thing should be way higher on this list, but it isn't, because Dave's too busy looking for crystals to update his goddamn Instagram account. Number 41, Gateway. I absolutely adore a good slopey arete traverse, and this Jimmy Webb FA on the Dreamtime boulder would probably be much higher up if it weren't for the fact that one of the holds not just broke, it apparently freaking crumbled. As it stands, what was originally an 8B plus is now a proposed 8C plus that's only been sent by Martin Keller, who devoted over 150 sessions to this thing at the ripe young age of 45. But yeah, since there's no video of how this thing climbs with the broken hold and a bold broke in the first place, 41 is probably high enough despite how cool the original line actually looks. Number 40, Epitaph. Yep, that's a boulder right there. Good, good job sending that. Thing broke at some point too, so whatever. Epitaph is cool, but just like, middle of the pack cool. Number 39, Fuck the System. I know, this thing is legitimately cool, but at the same time, the part that makes fuck the system, and not Foundation's Edge is the fact that you're basically climbing on the footholds of Foundation's Edge, and I've experienced entirely too much trauma having to do that on the kilter board to rank this thing any higher. Look, if your boulder is sharing the same holds as another one and you just decide not to use the better ones because fuck you, that's why, you're pulling off the definition of a contrivance. I'm sorry, but that's just how the system works, no matter how hard you try to fuck it. Points for looking pretty and for actually having cool movement on a 90-degree roof with some holds in odd directions, but yeah, nah, not getting past me on that one. Number 38, Sword of Damocles. There's a lot about Sword of Damocles that I think people don't really know because this is yet another boulder where the only thing the public has ever gotten to see is a goddamn photo. And yet, somehow, magically, Austin Purdy, who FA'd this, was kind enough to let me show you a couple of things from a video that he's editing, so check this out. Honestly, this is basically the exact same boulder as Gatekeeping, but just mirrored on a right side arête instead of a left, and on a slightly less famous boulder. And by slightly, I mean like completely. Cool crux move throw to a crimp, and then there's the FA story, where the road up to Mount Evans was going to close for 2 years, and Austin just barely managed to squeak in ascend before it did by sneaking up there on an e-bike, which is admittedly a cool enough story to give Sword of Damocles a ton of aura points. Number 37, Maxwell's Demon Low. This is easily one of the most underrated boulders on this list, and if none of you are complaining about it being as high up as it is, I'll know you're either not watching or just not paying attention. Actually, probably just skip through the middle to see what the top 10 was. But anyways, this boulder is actually pretty freaking rad. It climbs through a super thin crack in a cave and follows the same crack until it almost completely fades before forcing a super big throw to a lip. It's unfortunate this thing hasn't gotten the attention I think it deserves, and I think that's for 2 reasons. The first is that there's no full video of the line. I had to splice footage of 2 boulders, Schrodinger's cat and Maxwell's Demon Stand, to show you what this looks like. And 2, Drew Rowana clearly filmed this with the same toaster he'd continue to beat the absolute living shit out of for the next few years before eventually lending it to Sean Bailey, who then used it to record his send of Arrival of the Birds. Number 36, REM. Yet another hard line on the Dreamtime boulder, and this one is a little more respectable. This thing is exactly what I think about whenever I think about climbing meat and potatoes, just a basic ass ladder of horrific crimps on a slightly less aggressive overhang. Honestly, name a grade and I'll tell you like 15 different boulders that basically all look the exact same as this one. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Actually, in my opinion, that's the exact reason why I think this is the perfect middle of the pack boulder. Honestly, I think the only reason REM is relatively famous is because of Paul Robinson's insane 2-grade downgrade, which he retroactively took back once everyone told him he was basically nuts, and the fact that this one introduced the world to Giuliano Cameroni, and by extension introduced Jules to the concept of flow state.
It's a fucking dream, dude.
And potentially the word dude.
It's a fucking dream. Wow, dude. Dude! Dude, fucking perfect. Fucking perfect, dude. Dude. Oh my god. It looked V2. Dude, V2, dude. Fucking V2, dude. I was like...
Number 35, Off the Wagon Low. Oh my god, I'm gonna get crucified for this one. Ah, man, you guys are gonna eat me alive in the comments. Please be gentle. Actually, you know what? No, I was gonna be apologetic about this, but honestly, fuck it. I'm doubling down. Listen, this boulder isn't trash, but the low adds 2 barn door fighting moves on shitty feet that are pretty cool, but not the best in the entire world cool. And the stand, well, that was one of the most classic boulders until Giuliano Cameroni did to it what Sam did to those couple of conies in the 2 towers. Yeah, he cooked, but at the same time completely fucking ruined the boulder in my opinion. This dude accidentally showed the world that what was one of the most unique moves in climbing history was actually just a stupid little contrivance that could be circumvented with a shitty little crimp. Off the Wagon was one of the coolest boulders on the planet, and now it's the equivalent of watching some shirtless bro try to impress his Tinder date by campusing the V2 in your gym's cave. And yet I still couldn't bring myself to put it lower than this, just cause like, it's so freaking cool, man. It's Off the Wagon. And look, maybe the Tinder date in this metaphor isn't impressed with your physical prowess, but all the other dudes in the gym actually low-key kinda could be, so maybe showing off them biceps really is super worth it. Hell, I'll watch. Look, all jokes aside, Off the Wagon Low is completely carried by its far superior and far more legendary stand start. It happens, it's fine, just look at Vecchio Leone. The low has also broken a few times and has been chipped, so yeah, I'm keeping it at 35. I don't care, fight me. Number 34, Sosa. The cave is cool, the movement is awesome, Zach Gala and everyone else who has done this is a freaking beast to be able to hold such an absolutely insane straight arm swing off of what's probably a surprisingly slopey 20 or so millimeter edge. Unfortunately, that's where all the good stuff ends. No amount of post-punk fisheye lenses and let's fucking goes is ever gonna gaslight me hard enough into thinking that the jump on this thing doesn't look like a 6-year-old asking his mom to watch him cannonball into a pool. It's a pretty sick line, but the fact that the hardest part about it seems to be keeping your toesies up as much as you can just makes it lose all sorts of points. And honestly, to every boulderer out there, in case you weren't aware, this is why every sport and trad climber in the world is laughing at us. But yeah, in my opinion, the kind of boulder that deserves to be right smack dab in the middle of this list. Mostly for the memes, and because putting it right after Off the Wagons probably pissed a lot of people off, and I find that funny. Number 33, Karoshi. Say what you will about Paul Robinson's penchant for overworking his brain via retrograding, like literally all of his problems, but this thing is actually surprisingly pretty damn cool. First of all, the fact that it's in Waco just kind of adds to the whole shebang because, I mean, let's face it, it's Waco. Secondly, the name is kind of cool in that it's a Japanese term that literally translates to death by overwork. And third, I mean, if Burden of Dreams is one of the greatest examples of board climbing on real rock, this thing is honestly a pretty freaking close second. Unfortunately, that also means that the chances of this thing keeping the 8C plus V16 grade are basically slim to none because every single one of those TB2 obsessed freaks will probably swarm the second they catch a whiff of this thing. Calling it right now, this is going to be the world's first 8C plus flash if things keep going the way they are. A fact that I find so beautifully ironic given this thing's name, it actually physically hurts. Just keep wheeling those Noahs, everybody. Number 32, Full Gem. Yeah, so this thing is actually pretty freaking cool. It's a beautiful looking bit of overhanging triangular rock, quite literally a forgotten gem. The full line adds a bunch of technical toe hooking and crimping on some absolutely horrifically bad looking holds before ending on an amazing throw to what seems like it might be a jug on camera, but is probably more like an incredibly bad sloper. I know Full Gem is in theory like the official low start of Forgotten Gem, but it honestly starts way off to the right and somehow manages to form a line that's almost completely independent before joining the original for the last couple of moves. It's just enough that we're not dealing with like a Vecchio situation, but also not enough that it can be considered something truly special. Number 31, Deepfake. Yeah, I can't help but admit that there's just a little bit of bias when it comes to this one being here because Fake Pamplemousse is kinda sorta one of my absolute dream boulders. I mean seriously, how could it not be? It's a perfect crimp line in a gorgeous roof right next to a river in one of the most notoriously beautiful countries in the world. My life list never stood a freaking chance. And the full line Deepfake is absolutely incredible, adding some awesome super tension-y power climbing on horrific crimps and a brutal wrist-exploding undercling. But as awesome as this thing is, it must be said that the constant talk of it being much easier for the tall means Deepfake was never really ever gonna crack the top 30. Number 30, Adrenaline.
One, it's some of the most painful holds I've ever grabbed in my life. And two, it's some of the sickest and most unique movement I've pulled on, especially if this is up hard after boulder.
Yeah, so kind of letting Noah do my job for me there, but also, does anyone know what the fuck he said at the end? I can't tell if I'm just incapable of understanding because the whole most painful holds ever, but also most unique movement ever thing just doesn't compute as a positive, but, well, what do I know? This thing is cool, and yeah, the holds are painful, but this is climbing, bro. It's an extreme sport, okay? And the name of the climb should tell you just how extreme it is. An absolute piece of shit boulder that a bunch of idiots have somehow convinced themselves is amazing because you have to jam your fingers into razor sharp rock and it's on the side of a freaking cliff in a spot that looks so ridiculously tiny you might as well be bouldering off a portaledge. So now you're probably wondering why this is so high up if I clearly think this thing is ass, and the truth is pretty simple. I'm one of those idiots. But yeah, okay, jokes aside, Adrenaline's here because it's the only boulder on this list with a finger jam, and I think that honestly makes it super notable, even if there is a non-zero chance that Pete Whitaker downgrades it to like V12.
What boulder is good at finger locks, you know?
Not many.
Right?
Number 29, Curveball. I feel like the curveball here is the one I'm probably throwing your way for putting this boulder as high as it is, and stupid joke, I would probably hate myself for not doing aside. If you don't think this thing's actually kinda rad, you're wrong, and here's why. Odds are there are probably one or two boulders exactly like Curveball at your local crag. It's an arete sloper traverse that's barely overhung and incredibly technical with super shitty feet that are more like smears. Basically, every other boulder in font that's around 7BV8 is gonna look exactly like this thing right here, or at least somewhat similar. So what makes this thing special? It's the fact that it looks like so many other boulders that would never in a million years be harder than V8. And yet somehow, this thing is one of the hardest in the entire world. I mean, seriously, look at every other boulder on this list. The vast majority of them are severely overhung in some sort of way. Not Curveball. Curveball is so vertical, it's basically a slab, and the fact that it is as hard as it is makes it really freaking sick in my opinion. Plus also, like, dude, you know how satisfying it's gotta be to slap the shit out of that rock and just stick to slopers like those? Number 28, Joya. I really thought a boulder as historically significant as Joya would deserve a higher spot on this list, but surprisingly, it turns out that while this rock is widely considered the first 8C plus V16 in the history of our sport, it's also a significantly big pile of chossy shit. And I mean that literally. This thing's gone through it. All kinds of climbing surgery to glue back broken holds, reinforce some other ones with potential to break. It is quite literally the flapper of hard boulders, just barely hanging on by a thread. But terrible rock quality aside, I mean, it's Joya. It literally means joy, which is exactly what Adam Ondra felt when he sent and gave us the greatest Smeagol impression the world has ever seen. And the same thing I feel whenever I watch him giving us the greatest Smeagol impression the world has ever seen. Look, Joya is actually really rad despite its issues. It's an incredibly difficult looking sequence on an overhang, some of the worst crimps to ever crimp, which surprisingly enough is a good thing. A boulder that is actually as hard as it looks, and holy shit, look at that, dude's matching on that hold. Okay, never mind. Matching sucks, dude. Fuck that. I'd rather do anything than match on a boulder. I'd rather not climb the boulder. Dude, I would rather be stuck on a 12-hour flight while hungover in a middle seat, headphones fresh out of batteries, and with a crying newborn baby with the lung capacity of Celine fucking Dion next to me than to piano match on a goddamn crimp. I take back all the ways I was trying to defend this one. Joya is trash, and its historical significance and fame is doing a lot to carry it. Okay, maybe saying it's trash is taking things a little bit too far, but it's not great. Number 27, Primetime. Another one off the obscure list, if only really because it's so recent. This is Korea's first proposed boulder at the grade, and even though there's no video, it looks really freaking cool. Just one of those sick half-arretes, half-not-arretes that's tall, hard, incredibly overhung, and on what looks like two rocks almost like balancing on top of the other. I mean, I can't really say much about this one, except that seeing these photos has me super excited for a potential send video. Number 26, Numa. I cannot overstate how upsetting it is that we don't have a video of this boulder problem. Numa's only been sent once. It was done so by Nikki Cheria, who refused to grade it, but it has been tried by Aiden Roberts and was a big Nale project from back in the day. Again, we don't even know how hard this thing is, and yet I could not put it in this video. If it weren't for the fact that all we have are photos, this thing would absolutely be somewhere near the top. Seriously, look at that freaking rock. There's a goddamn crucifix in the middle of it. This is easily one of the most incredible boulder problems I've ever seen, and the fact that it hasn't been tried more is a complete freaking travesty. Number 25, Tsunami. By this point, I think you can probably tell that I'm a pretty big sucker for a good highball. They're just better. What can I say? And honestly, I mean, yeah, take Tsunami and move it to any crag in the world and it would most likely be considered a must-do classic. But then if you actually consider the fact that this boulder is literally, like objectively, in one of the most disgustingly beautiful places in the world, then the whole thing becomes honestly kind of upsetting. I'm putting the coordinates for it in the description, so go do the Google Maps Street View thing and tell me this place isn't perfect. Freaking roadside, right by the sea, beautiful mountains in the background and in front of you. It's freaking Lofoten. Like, just what the fuck? And then there's the actual moves and the fact that this thing is, again, not all that overhung. A rarity for boulders at this level, and you get what ultimately results in an absolutely incredible line. Number 24, Flower of Sulphur. Ordinarily, a boulder like this would probably be at the very least in the top 20, but the fact of the matter is there's only a few photos and I just can't get enough of an idea for how this thing actually climbs. It's a tough situation to be in because, like, yeah, freaking look at this thing, right? But honestly, I'm just gonna take the safe bet here and put it as high as I can without actually compromising absolutely everything else. Number 23, Bugelbrett. Okay, so if you've watched any of this channel at all, it won't necessarily be a surprise that anything involving Bugeleisen is gonna be at the very least somewhere near the top of any list that I make, because Bugeleisen is easily one of the greatest boulders of all time, with one of the greatest names of all time. Bugelbrett, in this case, is the alternate right start that adds a bunch of moves into the stand and makes for an absolutely incredible sequence on bomber 55-degree overhanging rock. Which, may I remind you, is like a ridiculously rare freaking commodity. Seriously, boulders like this are practically impossible to find anywhere in the world. Now usually I'd be kind of dismissive of anything that adds a bunch of moves to an already established mega classic 5-star line like Bugeleisen, but in the case of Bugelbrett, I have to make an exception. This thing adds intricate toe and heel hooks, eventually forces an incredibly deep, super cool drop knee situation that ends with you fighting a helicopter style barn door thing that leads to the original Bugeleisen stand. Put simply, this is quite literally everything that the added moves that make up the low starts of boulders like Off the Wagon and Vecchio Leone wish that they could be, but are not. Number 22, Creature from the Black Lagoon. So I need you guys to take a look at Adam Shahar here for a second. Yeah, that right there is how I feel about Creature from the Black Lagoon after having heard about it nonstop for the past, like 10 years? I'm just kidding. If I really hated this thing, it wouldn't be as high up as it is on this list. The truth is, this boulder is actually really cool. It's got a great name, and the cave it's in is one of the more unique structures in all of bouldering. Add the fact that it's historic as fuck, in that it's probably the first consensus 16 to ever be done, and that it is somehow miraculously not a link up of a link up of a link up, and woohoo, boy, are we cooking now. Look, Creature from the Black Lagoon is cool, but unfortunately he also suffers from a really kind of awkward looking ending with strange heel hooks in spots that no one really enjoys placing, and an early left exit that doesn't so much make it feel as though you've actually conquered a boulder and are standing on top of it, as much as you just kind of sort of managed to crawl your way out of a hole in the ground. But yeah, it's an ultra classic, dude. I'm literally just nitpicking stupid stuff at this point. Number 21, the Ice Knife Sit. Yet another one of those boulders made famous because Daniel Woods just straight up doesn't seem to understand how strong he actually is. The amount of sessions that Drew Ruana put into this thing is legendary, and the fact that he had to ultimately upgrade it both because of how hard it actually is and because of his slightly smaller ape index is one of those climbing stories that will hopefully never be forgotten. But it's not just the story of the Ice Knife's second ascent that gives it enough stars to be as high up on this list as it is. It's the incredibly bomber rock quality and the actually intricate sequencing that's needed to unlock this thing. And I know some people might take stars away because your sequence might be different if you're taller, but the fact that Drew Rana was able to find a completely different way to do this thing than Daniel, and it still went, and it still seems to be about the same difficulty anyways, is, in my opinion, one of those things that makes the Ice Knife particularly special. I don't know, man, it's also just got some super cool freaking holds, another infamous Daniel Woods mini pinch, except this one's on an undercling, a whole bunch of absolute non-holds because the Ice Knife Sit isn't really all that overhung, it's just a special kind of cool to see something this complex in such a compact sort of space. Number 20, Year of Life. And the last of the we only have photos to work with boulders, and this is another one that hopefully will get more attention soon. One of the last projects on the Grandpa Peabody boulder, which is probably one of, if not the most legendary bits of rock of all time. I have basically zero information on this thing beyond knowing that it's supposedly great rock quality, that it's a completely independent line, and that it apparently tops out somewhere near Evolution. As it stands though, I can't put it anywhere else but here because this single photo is legitimately all I had to go off of. Number 19, The Process. Yeah, if you didn't kill me for putting Off the Wagon at 35, but you were kind of pissed off about it a little bit, I have a feeling this one might have driven you over the edge. I know. It's The Process. It's legitimately one of the most iconic lines in Bishop and probably the world. It's tall. It's amazing. It's the freaking process. Is there a more famous bouldering poster than Daniel Woods taking a giant swing on this thing? Is there anything more epic than seeing Zach Gala steez the absolute fuck out of it? Probably not. And yet, finding out how absolutely seek it to hell every single hold on this thing actually is was like seeing Luke Skywalker pull the mask off of freaking Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi. Dude's got that sad-ass, raspy breath, he looks terrible, all you can really do is hope Luke will put him out of his misery. And sure, yeah, it's emotional, but at the same time, it's like, good God, what the hell even is that thing? That's The Process. One of the greatest, most important villains of all time on the surface, low-key kind of pathetic and barely being kept alive by a little bit of glue and self-loathing on the inside. Number 18, United. You know, I think one of the weirder things about watching the strongest climbers in the world doing some of the hardest boulders in the world is that the skills and strength of said best climbers often makes it so that it's incredibly difficult to really understand just how hard the problems in question actually are. Like, I know I suck in comparison to these people, and this makes me sound completely fucking delusional, but sometimes I'm fully convinced that everything on this list is at least somewhat possible for me. Like, I'm gonna just show up and flash absolutely everything. United is definitively an example of not that. Honestly, I genuinely think this might be the hardest looking boulder ever put to camera, and I think this absolutely disgusting quarter pad 2-finger pocket on a freaking roof is 100% to blame. And that's not the only thing that makes this whole ridiculous boulder problem look hard. We're talking some of the most technical heel hooking I've ever seen on some incredibly slopey crimps, some really insane dynamic movement, and to top it all off, an actually hard looking mantle on some of the mossiest rock I think I've ever seen in my life. Oh, by the way, just as an aside, Sean Rabatou did this with a Sportiva solution that he painted black because he's a Scarpa sponsored athlete, and I just find that entirely too goddamn funny. Also, this thing broke at one point, which is why it's not higher up on this list. Number 17, Isles of Wonder Sit. This is either the UK's time to shine or me being blinded by guilt for constantly bashing every single bit of rock on that entire freaking island. Look, if you enjoy having shoulders, this is probably not the boulder for you, but if you think insanely hard Gaston moves on crazy polished high quality Wales rock with some incredibly intricate sequencing, some really techie heel hooking, and the obvious need for a metric shit ton of general body strength is your bag, then this is very legitimately the boulder for you. I understand it might not necessarily be the most aesthetic thing on this planet, but I personally find this sort of weird little UK sandstone proud to be pretty freaking cool. And if you look at it from a certain angle, the boulder actually looks really, really pretty. Plus also, I mean, not for nothing, but this is what Aidan Roberts said after his FAs.
It's the best climb I've ever developed.
So I'm gonna take his word for that. Number 16, Port do Sol. Why does this feel like a betrayal of everything I've ever believed in? Look, I'm gonna be honest here. It physically pains me to put a goddamn comp style boulder as high as I'm about to. But I also kind of feel like with all the crap that I've given Will Bosey throughout this video, the poor guy was more than just a little overdue for at least somewhat of a win. And Port do Sol, I mean, god damn it, I don't really want to put it this high up. Fine, whatever. Jokes aside, the move is really dope though, and I have to at least try to be somewhat objective here. Honestly, it's another one of those boulders where it's really legitimately difficult to believe or even understand why or how it could possibly be as difficult as it's supposed to be. This thing, it's basically a slab. And the holds as always look like jugs, both on camera from far away and under Will Bosey's fingertips. But the truth is, look, whatever this dude's grabbing can only be defined as a hold extremely loosely, and on top of that, I'm actually genuinely struggling to understand what the fuck it is that he's even standing on. And then you add the fact that he's somehow generating sideways motion from a super weird position where that shouldn't really be possible, and catching a crazy coordination move, and yeah, as much as I hate stupid circus tricks in climbing, I will begrudgingly admit that Port do Sol is more than cool enough to be at the top of this list. Plus also the sequence that gets you into the Cordo is actually kind of dope. The top, while more of a victory lap, still seems to demand some level of focus, and then there's the rock itself. It's no Brione granite, but the fact that what we're dealing with is an otherwise completely blank and totally unclimbable face except for a couple of perfect holds scattered about, in my opinion, that makes this thing not just an absolute rarity for a boulder because of its sequence, but really something surprisingly special. Number 15, Event Horizon. Had Event Horizon not started with an awkward heel hook placement you have to squat down to get into, it'd be even freaking higher on this list. As it stands though, no pun intended, I think this boulder is actually freaking perfect. Unlike most of the low starts to already established lines in this list, Event Horizon actually adds some significantly high quality moves to room service and room service low. Some awesome full span slapstastic shenanigans with incredibly intricate beta and sequencing that allows you to get into the underclean start of room room service low, and from there just more non-stop hard movement and compression to a victory jug top out. And I'm not done singing this thing's praises, because if it wasn't enough that we're talking about absolute bulletproof granite, Event Horizon is also right in the freaking middle of the room, which is probably one of the most famous climbing spots of all time. Literally just sitting right there next to freaking Dreamcatcher. That said, we're talking about an extremely conditions dependent problem, and ironically enough, the room also famously really does not help with that. Also, it's a super famous spot, so odds are you're going to be weaving through some crowds. But yeah, minor grievances aside, Event Horizon is amazing, and I mean, I love a good squeeze block, so yeah, there you go. Number 14, Nexus. So, Nexus climbs through the same cave as Tampopo, which I ranked as the 44th boulder on this list, and while you might be surprised to see such a huge difference between two lines on the exact same boulder, it's my belief that Nexus is the gold standard for what a cave boulder should look like. Okay, fine, I'll admit it, the boulderer in me definitely thinks that this thing is entirely too long, but at the same time, I think it's just way too cool to not be placed as high up as possible, even though getting pumped scares me. Look, this thing is a completely independent line, it tops out, and it exists in a riverside cave that's so freaking special, I don't think we are ever going to see anything similar to it found anywhere else on the freaking planet unless we change our ways as a species. Like, maybe if we're extremely lucky and extremely well behaved, God will somehow come down and gift us with another one of these. Not that I believe in God anyways. Or even humanity, come to think of it. This thing is wild. Intricate beta on some horrific holds lead to an incredibly cool undercling sequence in what I think is one of the most insane bits of 360 beta-ing I have ever seen in my entire life. There's no rest either, which makes this even more of a rarity. Just absolutely sustained, non-stop power endurance, or maybe just endurance, depending on how strong you are, climbing thing that leads to a hero's top out. Incredible. Number 13, Permanent Midnight Low. Dude, I don't know, just look at it. Seriously, just freaking look at it. You don't need me to explain why this thing is awesome, you know exactly why it is. But here, look, I'll do it anyways. A bunch of powerful underclings that are almost reminiscent of Sleepwalker force you to, meander left in their own sort of way and eventually lead to one of the coolest toe hooking sequences I think I've ever seen in my life. An incredibly rad cut loose follows with a high step which just adds all kinds of style points in my opinion, and the whole thing ends up tall and proud on what look like gigantic jugs, or at least I think, are they jugs? I mean, Simon Lorenzi fell off of them, so maybe not. Look, I don't really think I have anything to add here, to be honest. It's an amazing boulder, amazing rock, amazing movement. Yeah, this thing's just, it's full value. It was a project for years, and Dave Graham believes it's one of the best lines in Fione. And, well, in Dave we trust. Number 12, The Story of Three Worlds. So the lower start to this boulder has some of the most storied, history the bouldering world has ever seen, including the fact that Dave Graham basically used the ascent of this thing to call the entire climbing world soft. Story of Two Worlds was, according to Dave Graham, the true standard for what V16 8C was supposed to be. Not just an expert-level flex of mind-boggling proportions, but an incredibly important step in grading that saw the subsequent downgrading of climbs like New Baseline and even Dreamtime. Story of Three Worlds adds a cool little sequence to Dave's original line, effectively climbing through the cave completely and including one of the most ridiculous moves I think I have ever seen in my entire goddamn life. I mean, yeah, what the hell even is that? It's like a backwards throw to a freaking undercling on a 90-degree roof. It's the kind of thing every single setter in the world watches and thinks, yeah, I'm gonna put that up on the cave on the next reset for sure. This boulder has, pretty much everything you could ask for. A knee bar rest if you want it, toe hooks, heel hooks, intricate sequencing, a nice little mantle finish that leads into an absolute victory V-nothing slab. It adds to one of the most historically significant boulders on the planet. Where else was I actually supposed to put this thing? Number 11, Last Line of Defense. Ah yes, Bouldering and Yosemite, an iconic duo that stood the test of time in much the same ways as James Bond and Consent, Alex Honnold and Regular Human Emotions, and JFK and the 5 Ds of Dodgeball. I have no idea how or why the Valley has somehow managed to resist the bouldering craze of the last few years, but considering the incredible rock quality over there, and the fact that it's home to the most famous boulder problem of all time, yeah, it's really nothing short of a miracle, and one of those mysteries I don't think we'll ever solve. Like whatever kind of fucked up black magic Grigri's used to, function. Okay, jokes aside, it's true that actual cutting-edge, super hard bouldering is kind of a new addition to the valley, and I think David Fitzgerald's last line of defense is a genuine fucking masterpiece. This thing's the low start to a climb called the Shield, hence the name, and had been an extremely well-known project for years. It revolves around one of the biggest asshole pinches I think I've ever seen. Like, just look at this thing just ejecting Dave here. It's nuts. That alone, a pinch in the wild on this type of granite, would be enough to make Last Line special in most Yosemite dirtbags' eyes, but then add the fact that once you do actually manage to wrangle down the pinch, you still have a big jump into compression, and then a wildly technical, extremely heady top to get through that bucked Dave off multiple times. Look at this dude's reaction, man. That's a guy whose life just flashed before his eyes right there. But yeah, easily one of the best in the world, and an extremely proud line to add to the mecca of granite climbing. Number 10, Ephira. Holy shit, watching Jimmy Webb smash this thing while Rage Against the Machine blasts roll right gets me more psyched than I can even begin to explain. Watching this Sen video has legitimately become a sacred part of my pre-big day out rituals and is probably single-handedly responsible for more of my Sens than I can even count at this point. Ephira is freaking awesome, okay? It climbs out of a weird little cave thing and moves into one of the nastiest Gaston pinches I think the climbing world has ever seen. If Isles of Wonder was Gaston heavy, this thing makes that look tame in comparison. Doing 2 enormous shoulder moves like these in a row? That's a whole other monster of body strength, and it's honestly no wonder freaking Jimmy has to scream like a bear when he tries this thing. Look, Jimmy aside, and again, it's honestly kind of hard not to talk about the guy, Ephira is fucking full value. If the whole 2 Gaston moves in a row thing wasn't enough for you, you'll then find yourself near the top of the boulder where you're gonna be forced to really get your shit together or like probably die or something. What looks like an incredibly hard, incredibly technical top out that had Will Bosey looking not just human, but actually freaking shaky, like full-on Elvis leg, is all that's left between you and glory, and while I do really think the jug top-outs are generally better, Will's holy shit I can't believe I'm alive look makes me think that actually committing to this thing is not just one of the most worth it situations in climbing, but also probably makes for one of the more memorable experiences you could possibly hope to have on a boulder. Number 9, Grand Illusion. Much like Sleepwalker, I think this thing suffers from a little bit of sen fatigue in that it's consistently in the minds of most people who are in some way absolutely obsessed enough with bouldering to even watch a video like this. Ultimately, I think that while that sort of fatigue tends to make us think that Grand Illusion and something like Sleepwalker might deserve less stars than they already have, it's kind of true that people get obsessed with these lines for a very good reason. They're absolutely freaking sick. The opening shot of Drew Ruana on Grand Illusion in Nathaniel Coleman's FA video was one of those things that just completely dropped my jaw to the freaking floor the first time I watched it. What, you mean there's a seemingly infinite cave with some of the most unique features I think I've ever seen in my life, goes from incredible tufa climbing, which on its own is more than rare and cool enough, and then slowly morphs into a hard crimping sequence that ends on a friendly mantle and I'm not supposed to like it? Yeah, no. I'll take 2. Honestly, it's no wonder this thing has like 15 different starts. People kept wanting to climb it over and over again and just needed an excuse. Like for real, it's no wonder Ben Hanna started crying when he sent this thing. I really think the reason he did is not just because he was super stoked that he did it, but because he probably suddenly realized that he would likely never get to climb a boulder as good as this one ever again. Unless of course someone goes to the back and starts digging even more rocks from out of there. Number 8, Big Z. I know, the death rock right there will probably take some points away for safety for a lot of you, but the truth is that as long as you find yourself a better spotter than Jimmy Webb, I'm pretty sure you're gonna be okay. Plus also, fuck your safety, dude. Freaking Vermin Sherman used to put down a sweater, and that was more than enough for him. And I mean, look at him. Dude's fine.
Thanks, man. I always wondered what it would feel like to be a sissy. Now I know.
Listen, the sequence and beta that are needed to put this thing together are some of the most mind-blowingly creative bits of climbing I think I've ever seen. Seriously, who does this Sean guy think he even is? Dave Graham?
Oh my god, I'm dying!
Crickets, for the world's worst joke aside, it's honestly kind of true. I don't know how many tabs of acid Sean had to take in order to properly understand what he actually needed to do in order to unlock this thing, but the fact that the song he chose for his Sen video is a live version of the Grateful Dead's Althea means it was definitely more than 2. There's really only one thing that Big Z asks for anyone who climbs it, and that's how freaking weird can you get? And are you cool with protecting a death rock with a sweater? And also, can you toe hook? That was a lot more than one. This is genuinely some of the most unique bits of climbing I have ever seen, and the fact that it is as hard as it is probably one of the most mind-blowing things in all of bouldering. It's not the prettiest of rocks, but honestly, when your sequence is forced and looks as wild as that, I mean, priorities. Number 7, Poison the Well. I love the fact that depending on the angle you view it from, Poison the Well legitimately looks like it's no harder than an average gym V8. And yet the truth is that this thing might genuinely be the hardest boulder problem on this list. I'm pretty sure that this thing was named after a metalcore band, but the fact that to poison the well is also a legitimate informal fallacy where you try to discredit someone by preemptively ridiculing what that person's about to say, and this boulder looks softer than the fucking Pillsbury Doughboy, well, that just ruffles all the feathers on my nerdy ass. Poison the Well is hard. It's so hard that Sam Weir has gone on record to say that he thinks the bump move on it is tough enough that this problem might actually merit a full upgrade to V16 9A. He's also gone on record to say that anyone shorter than him is going to have an even tougher time, meaning like potential V18 for someone like Beckett Shin, which means it's no wonder that the only 2 people that have ever done it are actually kind of tall, Giuliano being 6 foot, Jimmy being even bigger. Now, usually a boulder being so morpho that there's an actual grade disparity for tall folks like Jules and Jimmy versus others would definitely lower the quality. But in this case, I just don't care. I don't give a shit. Like, guys, are you seeing how pretty this thing is? How epic the moves on it are? Look at Jimmy jumping after the bump move. Look at Jules holding tension on it somehow. Look at how sick this final mantle section is. I mean, it's too freaking good. Listen, if you're shorter and this thing's harder, good. You get to spend more time trying it. If you're taller and it's easier, good. You have a better chance ascending. Look at me, actually searching for silver linings for the first time in my entire life. And I'm actually happy about it. Number 6, devolution. I mean, come on, I can't have every single problem on one of the most iconic bits of rock on the freaking planet outside of the top 10, right? It's just, it had to happen. There's no way around it. It's the grandpa. Devolution is quite literally just 2 moves that climb into Evolution Direct, and man oh man do those 2 moves pack a powerful freaking punch. Here's the thing. Evolution Direct is easily one of the most classics that have ever classicked. It's not the original line that Jason Cale put up in 2002. That one goes up left. It's a whole other thing that's slightly easier but still ridiculously heady and epic, and probably the only thing that has ever motivated me enough to consider actually training for slap. I still haven't, but you know, I considered it, which is like a really huge step for me. Point is, evolution is awesome, but there is one thing that actually takes away some stars for me, and that's that you have to start on a stack of pads, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but in my opinion is both kind of lame and kind of silly. Devolution completely fixes that with 2 of the hardest moves on the freaking planet. Yeah, that right there is a single move that's been called harder than the first move on Burden of Dreams, and I freaking believe it. Look at this thing, it's insane. There's no opposition at all anywhere. How in the hell he manages to grab a crimp that small and that bad while moving that explosively, literally in the wrong direction, is freaking beyond me. If I'm to understand things correctly, we're talking like, I don't know, single move 8B plus V14 probably? And the second move here is no gimme either. You still have to keep things together enough to be able to jump to another crimp that's ridiculously far. This can be seen in this photo right here of Zach Gala. And then, I mean, look, if you're strong enough to do these moves, you get what basically amounts to the greatest victory lap of all time. Because Evolution Direct is quote-unquote only V11. A very flashable grade for anyone that can send anything on this list. So, you know, freaking epic. Number 5, the Dark Side. I think a lot of people might be a little bit confused as to why the Dark Side is as high as it is on this list. You know, on the surface, is this thing really all that special? It's a cool sloper traverse with horrifically bad feet that ends on a literal high note, but otherwise, you know, what gives? Isn't this just basically curveball with extra steps? But the truth is, look, I think in a lot of ways, a lot of modern climbing media has conditioned us to view climbing, and especially maybe bouldering, as this thuggy, dynamic, power-forward sort of thing. I look at the vast majority of videos, even the vast majority of this video, a lot of the bouldering has a ton, and I mean a ton, of super fast, almost violent movement and leaves barely any room for the more delicate and balancy side of the sport. And in my opinion, the dark side seemingly represents the absolute culmination of that side of climbing. I don't know about you, but I've always viewed Yosemite as the mecca for that sort of style, a place with incredibly technical climbing born out of the vision of old school legends like Lynn Hill, John Backer, John Yabo Yablonsky, who invented the sit start by the way, or even further back to freaking Royal Robbins and Warren Harding. And to me, Ascent of the Dark Side is kind of a nod to that old school style. It's the continuation of a tradition within climbing that isn't as appreciated today as it once was. And I just can't help but think how absolutely mind blown all those people would be if we could go back in time and tell them that someone would climb this problem one day. And that one of them was a chick, no less. You gotta love that old school sexism. I think Jimmy Webb put it in a way that was a lot more succinct, so here you go.
I was like, wow, an old school boulder in a new school difficulty.
Yeah, see, like I said, a bunch of non-existent slopers followed by some crimps, and a top you gotta keep it together for. First 8C plus V16 climbed by a woman too, which is kinda cool, though no video, unfortunately, for like literally everyone, but you know, it is what it is. Just absolutely historic for more reasons than I can currently count. Number 4, Sleepwalker. Okay, look, at this point, whether or not this boulder should even be on this list is incredibly debatable. And honestly, for a hot second, I didn't even include it, which probably would have sent a lot of you guys directly to the comments to systematically and meticulously chew my head off for like the 5th time today. It's unfortunate, but this boulder has been consistently downgraded to 8C V15 for the past few ascents, and yet, if this was going to be ranked, it was going in the top 5 without even a single doubt. Look, Sleepwalker at this point has been sent so many times that I think it's incredibly easy to forget just how ridiculously good of a line this thing actually is. It's the boulder that literally launched Mellow, or at least cemented it in the climbing zeitgeist. Like Jimmy's FA is legitimately the 8th video those dudes ever dropped. But apart from its historical significance, I don't think the epicness of the boulder itself can really be overstated. Seriously, some of the most unique climbing movement on rock you will ever see, just absolute pure power climbing, the kind of boulder that feels like it was personally set for Jimmy Webb by God himself. A bunch of physical undercling moves on an insane overhang, an absolutely gigantic slap to the absolute nothingness that is that iconic sloper, and then a big throw to a hold that my mind can't really understand properly because everyone that's ever stuck it just looks like they're freaking floating somehow. This thing blew my goddamn mind when it came out. It blew my goddamn mind when Drew Ruana freaking campused the end of it. And yeah, the fatigue is pretty real, but I honestly think it's hard to find a more iconic boulder than this. Number 3, Floating. I'm assuming most of you knew this would be all the way up here when you first clicked on this video, and congratulations, look at you, you were right. You proud of yourself? You should be. This is the boulder that made every single setter on the planet collectively sploosh themselves into a coma, or at least serious dehydration. Legitimately one of the most new school, almost comp style boulders ever, and it's on rock, and it's forced, and almost everyone universally agreed that it was sick, and everyone immediately started setting replica after replica after replica after replica of it. Like seriously, there are 3 boulders that have received this unprecedented level of love from the climbing world, and those are Burden of Dreams, Off the Wagon, and this freaking thing. Look, seeing shit like this in gyms is the worst. I hate it. I hate it because it gets set entirely too much sometimes and thus lowers its value. But on rock, well, there is exactly one boulder in the world that forces a sequence like Floating, and that's Floating. That's what makes it such a classic. That's what makes it so special. It's a sequence that's actually forced. It just so happens that the left-hand start hold sucks and the right is better, making it so that you have to throw with your left. It just so happens that the 2 crimps to the left aren't just bad, but also slightly turned, so that hitting them from the bottom is actually harder than going a little farther up to the better one. It just so happens that it's somehow easier to do that weird rose feet first sequence, and it just so happens that recycling the hold you first go to is the best way to finish this thing off. There is no contrivance here at all, no doing this in a weird way for coolness factors like Off the Wagon. It just somehow turned out that the coolest way possible is actually also the easiest way to do it. And that just freaking blows my mind. It's also the rock itself isn't particularly ugly either, so that's kind of a nice little plus. Number 2, Livin' Large. With this ascent, who else but Nale Hukataival quite literally pushed the world of bouldering to new heights. Livin' Large was originally considered V15 8C until it was upgraded by a few people, most notably Sean Rabatou, who nabbed the 3rd ascent right after this right here. And now this absolute colossus of a boulder is widely considered one of the first of the grade. And, okay, look, this thing is like 30 feet tall according to Jimmy Webb, which puts the top of it almost 10-ish feet above the lip of evolution. But to make things even more epic, the move to the top of Living Large is widely considered to be one of the physically hardest moves on the climb. So basically you're being asked to do an incredibly difficult and technical move, which Adam Ondra seems to think is around V10 or so, some 25 to 30 freaking feet off the deck, well inside the don't even think about fucking falling zone. On holds that I just, like, what the fuck are these people grabbing here? Seriously, it's like the White House Correspondents' Dinner, just zero security. No wonder Sean hits the lip and gets out of there as fast as he does. I've seen people get out of shark-infested waters with more chill. Look at Jimmy freaking falling here. Dude nearly gives poor Daniel a freaking heart attack.
It's one of the more scared situations I've spotted.
But the thing is, look, we're not just talking about some incredibly sick movement with nearly incomprehensible technique requisites. This is also one of the most beautiful boulders on the planet, in my opinion. Thing's got the aura of that one super random black kid from Prisoner of Azkaban. You know the one. Absolute legend. Listen to him describing the holds on this thing.
It's like trying to catch smoke. Like trying to catch smoke with your bare hands.
Easily one of the most beautiful arêtes on the planet. It looks like the edge of a knife or the prow of a ship. Absolute bomber rock with those incredible Rockland sandstone origin blue hues that blend together perfectly. It's just such a cool boulder. Number 1, Hypnotized Minds. Quite simply, the stuff of legends. I mean, can anybody name a more iconic hold than the quarter pad mini pinch? I genuinely don't think so. But okay, look, Hypnotized Minds has been in the collective minds of every boulderer on the planet since Daniel Woods put out that Sanook video where he sent what was originally called the Veritas Right Project. Since then, Daniel has fucked up the spelling of Hypnotized Minds, the record label he meant to name this after, by adding a D at the end, accidentally made the whole thing more iconic by doing so, gotten a tattoo of the label's logo on his hand, retro upgraded the boulder to 8C plus V16 from his originally proposed 15, and is now actively trying to take a massive shit on it by adding a Chaucy-ass, no-star V13 link-up that nobody asked for. Okay, I'm just joking. It's not total ass, but it also wouldn't be a 5-star line. And I honestly can't imagine a more Daniel Woods thing than what I just described anyways. Hypnotized Minds is... I mean, it's just fucking incredible. We don't have magnum opuses in climbing, but if we did, this would be Daniel's. In a lot of ways, it represents the pinnacle of what bouldering is supposed to look like. So roadside, you can basically touch the boulder itself from your car, incredible full span moves between horrifically bad yet seemingly positive holds, a heel hook situation that makes one of the hardest bumps of all time possible, a double Gaston catch, and a keep your shit together big move at the end. Overhung in the best sort of way, totally pure with an extremely clear start and finish, tall but not ridiculously so, a top out that isn't an absolute crux, but asks you to keep it freaking together. I mean, dude, look at Dave Graham on a heartbreaker fall right here. And I haven't even talked about the rock itself. Some really high quality granite that's not only absolutely freaking bomb-proof, but also actually incredibly awesome to look at. Some of the coolest looking black streaks that make the whole thing look like tiger stripes or one of those weird dogs with the wild fur patterns. You know the ones I'm talking about. Apparently it's called a brindle. But yeah. Look, when I started this list, there were basically only 2 things that I knew were going to be true. 1, Terra Nova's an absolute piece of shit boulder and needed to be at the bottom of the list. And 2, Hypnotized Minds was going to take the number 1 spot no matter what. And while Living Large is an extremely, extremely, extremely close second, I think the legendary status of Hypnotized Minds means I'm pretty confident most of you would agree with me on this one. Holy shit, this video was long, Jesus. Anyways, yeah, there you go. That was fun, I guess. Let me know if you enjoyed yourself in the comments. Subscribe to the channel if you did, as it's all kinds of helpful and tells me I didn't just waste entirely too much of my life. Let me know what else I should rank, if there's any other stuff that you'd like to see from me. But otherwise, yeah, enjoy the rest of the week, and as always, we'll climb some stuff.